USS Thresher, a nuclear-powered attack submarine, sank and broke apart during a test dive off Cape Cod. Twisted pieces were later found on the ocean floor.
A cutting-edge Navy patrol ship glides over the North Atlantic. Its new quantum magnetometer pings. It's found a ghost. Not just any ghost, it's a massive, uncharted metal object sitting right next to the tomb of the USS Thresher. Within minutes, the fleet is mobilized. You see, the Thresher's loss was the Navy's worst peacetime disaster, and this new discovery proves the official story was just the beginning of the lie. Echo of a lost sub. In the cold, dark, crushing blackness of the North Atlantic, 220 miles off the coast of Cape Cod, a ghost sleeps. The wreck of the USS Thresher, a nuclear-powered attack submarine, lies in 6 main pieces on the ocean floor. It is a tomb, scattered across a mile of barren seabed, 8,400 feet down. This is a depth of over 1.5 miles. The pressure here is a truly mind-boggling 375 times greater than at the surface. It's a memorial to the 129 men, sailors, officers, and civilian technicians who were lost on April 10th, 1963. For over 60 years, this has been a known quantity, a tragic but settled chapter in U.S. naval history. The location is marked, the story is told, the case is closed, or so we thought. Just weeks ago, a state-of-the-art naval research vessel, the USNS Vigilance, was on a classified patrol. This ship is one of the quietest in the fleet, a vessel designed for deep-sea surveillance and testing. Its mission was not archaeology. Its mission was to test a brand new revolutionary piece of hardware, a quantum magnetometer. You see, old magnetometers, the kind that have been used for decades, are good. They find large metal objects like shipwrecks or old torpedoes by detecting their distortion of the Earth's magnetic field. But they are, to put it mildly, clumsy. They're like using a giant magnet to find a needle. They can be fooled by magnetic rocks or just miss things buried under deep silt. The new quantum magnetometer is different. It's a total game changer. It doesn't just find metal, it operates on the level of atoms, using supercooled quantum sensors to detect the tiniest, most subtle disturbances in a magnetic field. It is, no exaggeration, thousands of times more sensitive than the old tech. The Navy is crazy about this new tool. They believe it's the key to making the ocean transparent, the only way to find the next generation of stealth enemy subs that are built from non-ferrous alloys specifically to be invisible. The Vigilance was running a test pattern over the known Thresher debris field. They were using it as a control target to calibrate the new sensor. The operators expected to see the familiar, mapped-out magnetic signature of the main wreck. But then, something impossible lit up their screens. It was a ping, a strong, clear, and absolutely terrifying magnetic signature, nearly a full mile away from the main Thresher wreck. This wasn't just a missed piece of pipe or a spare hatch. The signal was massive. The data showed a large, concentrated mass of metal. It was deep, buried under decades of sediment, and it had a magnetic signature that did not match the rest of the Thresher. The analyst on duty reportedly went pale. This object was not on any chart. It had been missed by every search for 60 years, including the ones by the famous oceanographer Robert Ballard, the man who found the Titanic. Within minutes, a coded high-priority message was sent to Naval Command in Norfolk. The response was not a suggestion. It was a direct, immediate order: deploy. What many overlooked is how fast the Navy moved. This wasn't a research mission anymore. This was a recovery operation. Within hours, multiple ships, including the deep-sea salvage vessel USNS Apache, were diverted and steaming at full speed toward the coordinates. The Apache is one of the few ships on Earth equipped with the Curve-21, a remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, that can work at depths up to 20,000 feet. The Navy was sending in the heavy hitters. The area was declared a temporary national defense exclusion zone. Commercial shipping was rerouted. Civilian flights were warned away. This is the kind of reaction you see for a lost nuclear device, not a 60-year-old history lesson. The thing nobody tells you is why the Navy would react this way to an old wreck. The answer is simple. This new object, this quantum ghost found by the new sensor, isn't just a piece of history. It's a threat. Its existence suggests that the official story of why the Thresher sank, the story the Navy has told for over half a century, is not the whole truth. It proves that something else went down with that sub. and the Navy is in a desperate race to get to it before someone else does. But to understand what they're so afraid of, you have to go back to the day the ocean went silent. The new object raised a terrifying question. What if the Thresher wasn't alone? 129 souls. In the early 1960s, the Cold War was not just a ground conflict. It was a silent deep-sea battle for the fate of the planet. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a desperate race to control the oceans. The ultimate weapon in this struggle was the nuclear-powered attack submarine. These weren't just ships. They were technological marvels, apex predators. A single nuclear sub could stay hidden for months at a time, hunting the enemy's boomers, the massive ballistic missile submarines that carried world-ending payloads. And the king of these new predators, the pride of the entire U.S. fleet, was the USS Thresher. Commissioned in 1961, the Thresher was the lead ship of her class. She was a revolution. At just under 280 feet long, she was more hydrodynamic, like a whale, than the diesel-electric fleet boats of World War II. This was a design built for underwater speed. Her S-5W nuclear reactor, a beast of engineering, could push her to over 30 knots while submerged. She was faster underwater than most ships were on the surface, but her real power was silence. She was built with advanced sound dampening, rafting her machinery on special mounts to make her a hole in the water, invisible to enemy sonar. Speaking of sonar, her BQQ-2 sonar array was the most advanced of its day, a giant sphere in the bow that could hear Soviet subs from dozens of miles away. To be assigned to the Thresher was to be the best of the best. The ship's crew of 16 officers and 96 enlisted men were all hand-picked, all nuclear trained. On its final voyage, it also carried 17 civilian technicians and engineers from the shipyard there to observe the tests. These were the brightest minds in the program. On the morning of April 10, 1963, the Thresher was 220 miles east of Cape Cod. She was conducting deep dive trials. This was supposed to be a routine test, a final checkup after a 9-month overhaul at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. On the surface, the submarine rescue ship USS Skylark floated, listening. The Skylark was an old ship, and its only real-time link to the Thresher was an underwater telephone, a device that was, to put it mildly, primitive. It was like a tin can on a string. The plan was simple. The Thresher would dive to her test depth, run some checks, and surface. But submarines operate in an environment more hostile than outer space. At her test depth of over 1,000 feet, the pressure on the hull is immense, over 600 pounds per square inch. That's like having a full-grown elephant balancing on every single playing card-sized patch of the hull. Any failure, any leak, is catastrophic. At 7:47 a.m., the Thresher began its dive. Communications were normal. At 8:53 a.m., the sub reported it was at minus 300 yards, or 900 feet, and everything was fine. Then at 9:13 a.m., the Skylark received a garbled underwater telephone message. The voice was strained, distorted by the sea. The words were, "Experiencing minor difficulties, have positive up angle, attempting to blow," and then nothing. The Skylark crew listened, helpless. They tried to raise the Thresher. There was no response. The ocean was dead silent. Then, at 9:18 a.m., the Skylark's sonar operator heard a sound. It was faint, but unmistakable. The sound of a ship breaking apart. A horrifying, crushing, imploding sound that lasted for less than 2 seconds. Naval experts would later analyze this sound and determine it was the Thresher's hull giving way. It was the sound of a metal hull collapsing under pressure it was never designed to hold. The USS Thresher, with 129 men on board, was gone. The news shocked the nation. How could this happen? How could the most advanced submarine in the world, a $300 million marvel of engineering, just vanish? The Navy immediately launched a massive search, but the ocean is deep. Debris was found, gloves, bits of insulation, a sneaker, but the sub itself was lost. It was the deadliest submarine disaster in world history. A national trauma. The Navy had to find an answer. They convened a court of inquiry, and the story they came up with would become the official narrative for the next 60 years. A story that, on the surface, made perfect sense. But as the new quantum magnetometer ping proves, It was a story that left the most important part out. This official story explained everything, except for one terrifying detail: burying the truth. When the Navy's Court of Inquiry finished its investigation into the loss of the Thresher, it presented a clean, technical, and ultimately convenient explanation. The thing nobody tells you is that this explanation was just as much about protecting the Navy's multi-billion-dollar nuclear submarine program as it was about finding the truth. The Cold War was raging. The public was terrified. The Navy would not admit to a fundamental flaw in their new wonder weapons. Here's the official story they gave the families and the American public. The blame was placed on a tiny piece of plumbing, a silver-brazed pipe joint. The Thresher had thousands of these joints connecting its high-pressure seawater pipes. You see, silver brazing is a process where, instead of welding two pipes together for maximum strength, you heat them and glue them with a melted silver alloy. Why do this? It was cheaper, and most importantly, it was faster. The Navy was in a race with the Soviets and was building subs at a breakneck pace. The inquiry claimed that one of these joints, which were known to be a weak point, must have failed. According to this theory, a high-pressure spray of freezing cold seawater shot into the engine room like a fire hose from hell. This spray hit a vital electrical panel, causing a massive short circuit. This short circuit, in turn, triggered an emergency shutdown of the sub's nuclear reactor. This is called a scram. In an instant, the Thresher lost all propulsion. She was dead in the water, a 3,000-ton steel casket sinking into the abyss. But there was a backup. The crew, in their final desperate moments, would have tried to blow the ballast tanks. This is the emergency surface button. It means using high-pressure air to force all the water out of the tanks, making the sub light enough to rocket back to the surface. But here, the official story adds a second tragic failure. The compressed air, as it rushed through the pipes, expanded and super-chilled, a phenomenon called the Joule-Thomson effect. Any moisture in the lines instantly flash froze. Ice, the inquiry claimed, formed on strainers and clogged the valves. The ballast blow failed. The crew was helpless as the Thresher sank past its crushed depth, a depth we now believe was around 2,400 feet. At that depth, the pressure is over 1,000 pounds per square inch. The hull didn't just leak, it imploded. The entire submarine collapsed in on itself in less than 0.2 of a second, ending the lives of all 129 men instantly. A tragic but logical chain of events. A bad pipe followed by an unlucky freeze. Case closed. To fix the problem, the Navy launched the SubSafe program. This new program was, to be fair, a massive success. It was championed by Admiral Hyman G. Rickover, the demanding father of the nuclear navy. He was furious, and he used the tragedy to force radical change. SubSafe mandated that every single component related to hull integrity and buoyancy be built, inspected, and certified to an almost paranoid standard. Welds replaced brazed joints. Air systems got high-tech dryers. Every single part was tracked from foundry to installation. And here's the kicker. Since SubSafe was implemented, not a single certified U.S. submarine has been lost to this day. It's a great story, a tragedy that led to incredible safety and innovation. But what many overlooked is that SubSafe also became the perfect cover-up. By blaming a simple pipe and ice, the Navy avoided a much darker, more terrifying possibility. They sealed the full records of the inquiry for decades. Families of the lost men had to sue the Navy, fighting for 50 years before a judge finally ordered the release of the classified documents in 2020. Why? Why such secrecy over a plumbing issue? Because it wasn't just a plumbing issue. The official story was a lie, and the Navy knew it all along. Red flags on the record. The official story of the bad pipe was neat and tidy, but the thousands of pages of documents finally released after a 60-year fight paint a very different picture. The Thresher wasn't just unlucky, the ship was a ticking time bomb. The thing nobody tells you is that the Navy knew. The records are full of wow factor warnings that were flat out ignored. First, those silver-brazed joints. During the Thresher's construction, inspectors found hundreds, not dozens, but hundreds, of faulty joints. In fact, a later review of all subs in its class found that a shocking 14% of all tested joints were substandard. That means 1 in every 7 was a potential leak. The Navy knew this. They rushed the ship into service anyway. Second, the ballast blow system. The problem of ice clogging the lines wasn't a surprise. This exact failure had happened on another submarine, the USS Barbell, just a few years earlier. The Barbell crew was lucky and recovered. They filed a report. The Navy's solution? They just wrote a new procedure telling crews to blow the tanks in short bursts. They didn't fix the design. They just hoped for the best. Third, the Skylark. The rescue ship on the surface was a joke. Its underwater telephone was the only link, and its sonar was old. It had no deep-sea rescue vehicle. It had no way to help. It was, to put it mildly, just window dressing. Knowing all this, the official story falls apart. It wasn't an accident. It was an inevitability. This has led to decades of whispers and alternative theories that the Navy has tried to silence. Many people are crazy about the Soviet theory. This theory states that the Thresher was not alone, that a Soviet Alpha-class submarine or another hunter-killer was shadowing it, that the two subs collided, or even more extreme, that the Soviets fired a small, low-yield torpedo. A collision or a small blast would explain the minor difficulties and the loss of power. The Navy, of course, would never admit this, admitting that a Soviet sub got the drop on their best boat and that it may have been an act of aggression would have been unthinkable. It could have escalated the Cold War into a hot one. Another theory points to the reactor itself. The S5W reactor was new. Was it possible it had a flaw? A loss of coolant accident? A steam explosion? A reactor room blast would have been instant and catastrophic. This too would have been a secret the Navy would guard at all costs, as it would have grounded their entire nuclear fleet. These theories have always been just that, speculation. They were easy to dismiss as long as the only evidence was the known debris field. The Navy could always point back to the bad pipe and the subsafe program as proof they had solved the problem. But the quantum magnetometer just changed the game. That new object, a mile away from the main wreck, doesn't fit the bad pipe story. An implosion, even a violent one, doesn't have the energy to throw a massive, multi-ton component that far. But a reactor explosion would, a torpedo impact would. The quantum ghost is a smoking gun. It proves the whispers were right all along. The plumbing story was a lie to hide the real cargo the Thresher was carrying. What the Navy is hiding. The official story of the Thresher's implosion has one massive, glaring hole: the debris field. When the wreck was finally found and mapped by the deep-sea research vessel Mizar in 1964, it wasn't in one neat pile. It was scattered over a massive area. The 6 main pieces, the sail, the sonar dome, the engine room, were spread out. This suggested a violent event, but the Navy explained it away as the sub breaking up as it sank. But this new object, this quantum ghost, detected a full mile away, blows that theory out of the water. An implosion, a simple collapse from pressure, doesn't have that kind of explosive force. It's a crushing, inward event. This discovery changes everything. This is where the new quantum magnetometer's power is so terrifying. As we said, this new tech is different. It's not just finding a hunk of metal. The reason the Navy deployed immediately is that the magnetometer detected a unique quantum signature, a specific magnetic echo that, according to sources, is only consistent with 2 things: either a component from the sub's S5W nuclear reactor core or the shielded casing of a nuclear payload. Let's think about this. The S5W reactor. The official story says it scrammed perfectly. But what if it didn't? What if the minor difficulties the Thresher reported wasn't a leak, but a reactor problem? A partial meltdown or a steam explosion first crippled the sub, and then it sank. A steam explosion inside a sealed pressure hull would have all the force of a massive bomb. It would have ripped the sub apart, hurling the reactor's core a mile away. This is a possibility the Navy would never have admitted in 1963. It would have ended the nuclear submarine program overnight. But the second possibility is even darker. The Thresher was an attack submarine. Her mission was to hunt. Was she just testing her depth? Or was she also testing a new, secret device? The 1960s were the Wild West of nuclear hardware. The Navy was developing everything from nuclear-tipped torpedoes, the Astor, to nuclear depth charges. What if the Thresher was carrying one of these? What if that device malfunctioned and detonated, ripping the sub in half before it ever reached crush depth? This would explain the massive, scattered debris field. It would explain the Navy's decades of secrecy. They wouldn't just be covering up a plumbing flaw, they'd be covering up a broken arrow, the loss of a nuclear device. This new object, this quantum ghost a mile away, is the evidence. It's the piece of the puzzle that proves the official story is a lie. It's either the heart of the reactor or the casing of a secret payload thrown clear by a massive explosion. For 60 years, this smoking gun has been lying on the ocean floor, buried in silt, invisible to all but the most advanced sensor on Earth. A sensor that wasn't even supposed to be looking for it. The Navy's immediate deployment isn't a scientific mission, it's a cleanup operation. They have to get that piece. Why? Because the Thresher's grave is no longer a private tomb. We are in a new Cold War. Russian and Chinese research vessels, also known as spy ships, are mapping the Atlantic floor. They too are developing quantum magnetometers. The Navy's immediate deployment isn't just about hiding the past, it's about protecting the future. They have to get the object before their rivals do, and the race is on. History repeats. The frantic high-speed deployment to the Thresher site isn't just about correcting the history books. At the end of the day, it's about national security. That piece of wreckage, that quantum ghost, is more than just evidence. It's technology. If it's a piece of the reactor core, it holds 60-year-old secrets of early U.S. nuclear design. If it's a piece of a secret payload, it's even more sensitive. In the hands of a rival nation, that single piece of debris could be reverse engineered. It could expose old vulnerabilities or new strategies. The quantum magnetometer, a tool built for a new Cold War, has accidentally reopened a file from the last one. The Navy's salvage operation with the USNS Apache is now in a desperate race against time. They have to get to the object, secure it, and lift it from a depth of over 8,400 feet. This is a monumental challenge. At that depth, there is no light. The temperature is near freezing. The pressure is over 375 atmospheres. The operation can only be done by a high-tech ROV, like the Curvus 21. This is a multi-million-dollar high-stakes robotics mission. The ROV will have to dredge through decades of silt, attach special lifting cables, and slowly, carefully raise this secret to the surface, all while dangling from a 1.5-mile-long tether. And they have to do it fast, because their rivals are watching. The sudden, unexplained naval blockade of a dead wreck site is a massive red flag. You can be sure that Russian and Chinese spy satellites are retasking. Their own research vessels, like the Russian Yantar, which is a known spy ship equipped with its own deep-sea submersibles, are already changing course. What we are witnessing is a shadow conflict. The Apache isn't just fighting the ocean, it's racing the Yantar. The tragedy of the USS Thresher, which took 129 lives, was the first great secret of the nuclear undersea conflict. For decades, the Navy was able to contain the truth by blaming a simple pipe. But now, a piece of quantum technology has found the one piece of evidence they could never account for. The race to the bottom of the Atlantic is on, and the winner doesn't just get to rewrite history. They may get a terrifying advantage in the next conflict to come. The Thresher's true story is finally surfacing. But was this a tragic accident or a cover-up to hide a terrifying new device? Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden stories.